Before we get started, please support our sponsor, Outdoor Legacy Gear. That is OutdoorLegacyGear.com. Get all of your survival gear, survivalist supplies, shooting accessories at OutdoorLegacyGear.com. Click the link below right now for holiday gift ideas for you and your family. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. In today's video, you'll learn the real reason oil prices are dropping across the globe. And it might come as a surprise to some of you, because the familiar narrative, if you tune into Fox News or CNBC or CNN or any of these other mainstream boob tube corporate statist-owned media organizations that are going down the tube in terms of viewership because people like me are taking over on the internet and have been doing so for years, they'll tell you that the main reason for the fall in oil prices has to do with Saudi Arabia and OPEC, oil exporting, producing countries, thingamajig, deciding to put pressure in countries like Saudi Arabia, which is actually an ally to the United States federal government, deciding to put pressure on oil prices to hit America in the balls where it hurts regarding our hydraulic fracturing here in the United States, this new way to get oil and natural gas out of the ground. And the pundits are saying if oil drops below 75 bucks on intermediate crude, for example, that all of a sudden these fracturing operations become less profitable, some of them become insolvent and eventually go out of business, and Saudi Arabia is going to ride out the storm. Now, although there might be some truth to that, there might be some truth to the idea that OPEC, Saudi Arabia, wants to put pressure, artificially manipulate oil prices lower to crush U.S. competition. That really isn't the real reason, and that isn't the entire truth. The truth of the matter, folks, is that we are at economic war with several countries and several made-up entities right now that the United States has been broadcasting all across the TVs, television sets, through your boob tube in your house and all over the internet. And those countries that the U.S. is primarily at war with include Russia, which interestingly, there was also a report today saying that Russia is going to intervene in Ukraine again, even though that's total bullshit because Russia hasn't intervened. They've only responded to a U.S.-led and sparked coup of the Yanukovych government. But the U.S. is at war with Russia. They are also at war with Iran, and they are also at war with the Easter Bunny, you know, the new fabrication of Durka terrorism since they supposedly, allegedly got rid of Osama bin Laden, Team America, F yeah, ISIS, the boogeyman, the new boogeyman. And I really think that the U.S. And their allies are manipulating oil prices lower themselves, not the other way around, because you see falling oil prices puts pressure on Iran's nuclear program. It puts pressure on Russia. It also puts pressure on the idea, again, the smoke and mirrors campaign that makes up fake beheadings and ISIS. So that's the real reason I think that the U.S. is putting pressure on oil prices. The other main primary reason, the driving force behind this, is that the United States is in a depression along with Europe. You could argue that we look at Europe, for example, and that they have stagflation. They have really zero growth. They actually have negative interest rates. We have 0% interest rates here in the United States. And you see, the U.S. government knows, our politicians know, the bankers know, high finance knows that oil prices, if they stayed where they were, would crush the U.S. economy, which has already been crushed, which is also already in a phony la-la land world of bank bailouts and, you know, gumdrops and lollipops coming out of helicopters in the form of digital currency, courtesy of people like Janet Yellen, her predecessor Ben Bernanke, etc. And so it really is a subsidy to the American people. Of course, higher oil prices act as a tax on the global populations, and if prices fall, that's, you know, temporarily better for consumers. But it has nothing to do, this gross manipulation of oil prices has nothing to do with helping out consumers. It has everything to do with the U.S. federal government, politicians, and greedy bankers saving their own asses. And that's why when you read reports that say that Saudi Arabia is behind this, OPEC is behind this, well, then I have a question for you. Why did they decide today not to cut oil production? Because if they really wanted to jack up prices, as we've seen them do before with an oil embargo, some of you remember in the 1970s, a very inflationary period, something I think we will see in the not too distant future as a result of these gigantic multi-trillion-dollar bailouts, they could do it. But they're not. And actions speak louder than words. Again, the fundamental drivers of all of this is the economic war that the U.S. is fighting against countries like Iran, their nuclear program, countries like Russia that are moving away from the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. Remember that oil is priced in dollars and has been priced in dollars for some time now, most of all of our lives. The U.S., anytime the U.S. dollar reserve currency is threatened, goes to war with those countries that threaten its status. Libya was a recent and current example where the U.S. government just blatantly decided to murder and implicitly assassinate Muammar Gaddafi when he was promoting a new African currency to price oil. We've seen this time and time again. We also saw this in Iraq. It's one of the reasons, the primary drivers and reasons that Obama continued the George W. Bush wars overseas and has stepped up airstrikes in this part of the world, Syria and Iraq recently, and is soon to announce even more ground troops in this part of the world, in this region. So that's the real truth. That is, and it just goes to show you how easy it is to manipulate oil prices. You see, the globalist bankers can do anything they darn well please. They can raise oil prices, create artificial demand, artificial supply. They can cut prices if they want to. They can do anything they want. And this, of course, is economic war, which will result, which arguably we've already entertained, we are already at physical war and engaged in physical war, namely in the Middle East. Again, this global war with Western interests, different idea and philosophy, what has made up Western culture for many years now, so-called crony capitalism, because we know we don't have capitalism, it's just a land of bailouts and sugar gumdrops to the very elite and the rich, versus this other part of the world, and what the U.S. government will argue, radical Islam, Durka terrorism, but what in reality is a dying nation here in the United States. And countries in the rising East, countries like China, countries like Russia, of course, taking over and moving away from the U.S. dollar. Also note that the dollar has been strengthening in recent months. I also believe manipulated by those at the top of the power pyramid. Manipulating dollar oil prices actually hurts those countries not buying oil in dollars. You see how you can connect all the dots here, how all of it makes sense? And it comes here to this point where the light bulb goes off. This is the real reason that oil prices have been artificially manipulated, are dropping into the 70s, below $3 a barrel at the pump. It's not because they're trying to help you out or they want to stimulate necessarily consumers. It's for their own geopolitical interests. It's the truth. It's reality. Please share this video everywhere. Make it viral. Hard hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.